Welcome back, everyone. This is part two of my interview with Jeff Altamari and Gordon Boyd, who represent Saratoga Charter Review Commission. In part one, we were discussing the fiscal report that was presented and what work you've been doing to really kind of further the information that people get in more detail, right? I want to move on to two things. One, you hear that why would we ended part one, Gordon, talking about the different silos, and people would argue, they would say every single job in every one of those silos is important. You eliminate deputies, you eliminate positions in government under the guise of saving money, when in reality I think the number I heard was like 18,000 hours. How could a city manager absorb 18,000 hours? So let's address that and then move right into the transition. Jeff?
Jesse, in the real world, okay, in business, every day departments are collapsed, more efficiencies are achieved through reorganization, okay? Yeah. We're stuck with a structure here because the charter doesn't allows very little change. Yeah. We said, okay, we want to go with a city manager format. Let's see what professional city managers do for cities about our size. We talked to the International City Managers Association. They gave us all kinds of data. We spoke with city managers. We spoke with mayors. We spoke with all sorts of people outside of our community involved in that kind of government. We saw the model. Cities about our size in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and New York State, you can see a flat organization with 10 or 12 or maybe even 13 direct reports to a qualified city manager. The functionalities are covered that we enjoy here, okay? Mm-hmm. And you don't see intervening layers of appointed, oftentimes politically appointed right, deputies, sure. Who, by the way, there have been over 3 of them in the finance department in a little more than a year, and a period of time where there was nobody. I mean, to argue that this is essential is to say, I'm Candide, this is the best of all possible worlds, we can't change it. Those of us who work in the real world know that management structures change all the time. They're reduced, they're replaced sometimes, you know, mm-hmm. They're recharacterized. And so we can certainly make that transition is all I'm saying. But when you look at these 20 cities that I looked at, you see the same type of management structure. So we're saying that would work. It's up to the voters to decide whether they think that's reasonable or not. Yes, we are not required to reconcile numbers that are being proffered, you know, kind of ad hoc to our model. It's not, we abandon that model. This is a new model. This is what we go with.
Well, you know, Jeff, they're suggesting that essential city services would be compromised. The deputies have very important roles to play.
I would disagree.
Yeah, you know what? And I would say, well, then just move to the director level, right?
Yeah, we have these director level positions. We have a fire chief. We have a police chief. They're very competent people. We have a great financial director, okay, in finance. We've got directors under the mayor in mm-hmm. recreation, and we have an excellent new human resources administrator. These people and these models would be reporting to a highly seasoned, well-educated professional city manager. I mean, we're not making this up. You know, this is the model that's out there, and we're saying this would be great. You go to the city of Livingston, New Jersey, the first thing you see on their website is, this is why this form of government is better. It's less mm-hmm. costly. It's more efficient. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah, I hear you.
Could I add something to that? Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that we're also doing here is we're taking out the elected officials and any political consideration in the way the administration runs. Right now, each elected official is in charge of an administrative department as well as being a legislator, so they have a dual role.
Yeah, right.
Now we're taking all the elected people and putting them in a different branch of government mm-hmm. called the city council mm-hmm. that has no administrative role except to supervise the manager, okay? Yes. And hire and fire the manager on very, favorable terms to the council. Yeah. So the manager would have a short-term contract. They would have to work at the pleasure of the council, and the council would control the budget. They would set policy. They would do all of those things that a typical legislative body does, mm-hmm. but the manager would carry out the day-to-day responsibilities. And for that, you don't need 5 political appointees near the top of the pyramid.
Well, you know, when you talk about political appointees too, what are the terms? 2-year terms?
Yeah.
I got news for you. I think we were joking once, right? It's not so much of a joke, by the way, which is it takes you 2 years to pretty much figure out where the parking lot in the office is, you know? And now you're talking about responsibilities like budgets, like public safety, like the fire department, all these other sort of things. But I also think, and again, just in observing what both sides are saying, essential services to the city are not being compromised. And that to me is most important. And in some ways, you could argue, but in some ways, what you're saying is that you're just streamlining this process and opening up the opportunity to cooperate between departments instead of setting up all of these current silos. I want to move into the transition. One thing that had been mentioned to me is that it's too vague in the process of transitioning from one form of government to the other in terms of costs, and that those could skyrocket.
Let me talk about that for a moment, Jesse. The way the charter is written, there's going to be an election in November of 2019. And those folks, that mayor, those 6 council members, okay, will become the new city council. Mm-hmm. They'll hold their first meeting January 1st. They're allowed to start to go out and look for a city manager at that point, okay, after the election. Now, it also says that the former, okay, deputies, because they're no longer deputies, that former government is gone. There are 6 people, or 5 people rather, who are going to assist, make sure that the things continue to operate, because they'll have projects and things to wind up until the city manager is installed. That costs us about $50,000 to $60,000 per month, their benefits and their salary. Well, and by the way, there are people who want to come here as city managers already. Mm-hmm. So if we hire somebody in January, our cost could be $100,000. If it takes us longer and we keep running the clock on those people, and there are other, we have to go out and find somebody, maybe put them in temporary living, maybe pay for their move. By the end of March, it could be $300,000, okay? It's tough for us to say because I don't know what the conditions are that we're going to hire people under. Sometimes people are given very generous packages. You pay their mortgage fees. Other times, come here and move in on your own. So,
yes, right, sure.
And there's going to be a task force that's also in the charter, not of council members, but of citizens, and they're going to assist in this process. So the best I can say is it could probably easily be $100,000 in the first month and probably move along at that clip over time.
Yes.
One could argue that, but I think my numbers are pretty solid.
Yeah, one thing that certainly impresses me is how thorough you are. There's not a lot of ambivalence in this.
Past efforts to change the charter, I think, suffered politically because they were rushed or there was some political undercurrent.
Totally agree with
That's
you
not
on that,
true
Gordon.
in this case.
Yes, it's definitely not true in this case. I think the first time I talked to Bob Turner was a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work that's being done to help us make an informed decision about what we should do with our form of government. Gordon, thanks for coming in. Jeff, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Jesse.
I'm sure we're going to have you back again because it seems like every time someone walks off the set, a new question comes up about what we should do here.
We're here to answer questions.
Well, you sure are. Thank you for coming in, spending the
Jesse.
time.
Thank you.
To see this interview again, you can head to our website, looktvonline.com.